Dear my viewers, good day. Today on our platform on Captain Puneet Malhotra'S show, that is a rendezvous with a duo entrepreneur and a marathoner. That is, we have two guests, Captain Debashish Basu and Captain Robert Shane Was. Captain Robert, Captain Debashish, I welcome you on this platform of MQS, which is affiliated to the media channels accordingly. I welcome you on board and thank you very much for coming and taking some time to join us. How are you, Captain Debashish?
Thank you, Captain Puneet. Very honored and thank you for having us and glad to be here. Yeah, we're all good.
Okay, Captain Robert, how's everything on your end? Anything latest which we'll talk about? First, let me go through your introduction, Captain Robert, Captain Debashish. Once again, thank you to join us at this point in time. Now, to talk about our two honorary guests, Captain Debashish Basu. He has been a mariner since 1988, and thereafter he graduated up the rank and got his command in year 2016. He had, a vast amount of experience in the maritime industry and weathering, roughest terrains and with adaptability as well as persevering through the emergencies and the perils, which normally is there for all the mariners. But he may have, he may have something exceptional, we may talk to him about that. Furthermore, he had been an author. He has authored his first book, published on Amazon Kindle in year 2017, and have authored two more other books ever since. The second one was written in 2020 and was called Decoding the Young Millennial Mariner. This has been circulated to several people within the maritime fraternity, and the third book, which he's going to launch, is coming round the corner. Furthermore, Captain Debashish and Captain Robert, about whom I'll talk about in detail, but because they have a joint venture on a platform, because Captain Debashish has been a founder of a company named NavGuide Solutions, in a joint venture with Captain Robert Shane Was. So, moreover, they have these two gentlemen or mariners have also been involved in carrying out structured training for the mariner to the maritime faculty, and has been selflessly contributing to the maritime industry to basically make our mariners more competitive with sharing their experience. Now, coming to Captain Was, Captain Robert Shane Was, he also has been mariner since 1980s and 87, etc. He joined the sea in the Merchant Navy as a cadet, and he also had been accoladed with the Best Cadetship Award with many dignitaries for the company in which he was serving. Now, more than that, besides being an entrepreneur with Captain Debashish, Captain Robert Shane Was has, exceptionally performed with his endeavors and endurance as an athlete, in which we'll talk about because he has been a kind of, if not legend, but not very short of legend athlete as far as the marathon is concerned. In year 2010, the inception of the Goa River Marathon, where he basically broke the ice and ventured into this enterprising, domain. With motivation, he participated in his first half Goa River Marathon, first half marathon successfully, which he completed in year 2011, and thereafter it was the beginning of a new chapter or era for him as a marathoner, along with an uphill task achievement of most difficult terrains. The exhaustive list had been a feather in his cap, persevering through the toughest goals against all odds. Now, when I talk about this particular aspect, it falls nothing short to the highest motorable point. I have also been there, but I drove down, which is nothing but Kardungla Pass, where he had, done his marathon run for almost about 100 odd kilometers. And prior to that, he also had completed, because before he started graduating to such a high, distance marathon, he had graduated step by step into a marathon of 42 kilometers. Then thereafter, 750 to 60 kilometers. That is ultras. That is 50 to 60 kilometers ultra, and Bangalore ultra was 75 kilometers. Now, thereafter, when he had, come to the Khardungla Pass, we will definitely ask him to share his experience. Now, coming to both the gentlemen, with their joint venture, they have already, got quite a handsome amount of recognition in the maritime industry as far as their field, the training field is concerned. Like in case of Captain Debashis, he started off as a blogger in year 2016, then wrote some books, and then ventured his brainchild as Nav Guide Solutions. And thereafter, there was nothing to stop when both of them were a team together, because both of them being a team in this particular field, by not only imparting the training but also educating the young seafarers with their on-hand experience as far as their experience sharing and mentoring, and then thereafter carrying out the assessment of the subject officers are concerned. So once again, Captain Debashish and Captain Robert Chenwaz, welcome on board. And I would like to start with it. Now, let's talk about, I know we all are mariners, all three of us are mariners. When we come from sea, like, doing 4 months of contract, or 4.5 or 5 months, whatever it is, we actually, many a times, because of the, let's say, the profession which is there, we become a kind of a secluded when we come back home, or into the environment in which we have been grooming, or in which we had groomed. So what's your take onto it as far as the mariner or mariner's mental health is concerned, subject to the occupational hazards is concerned? Any
Yeah,
one of you gentlemen?
thank you. Thank you so much, Captain Puneet, for the gracious introduction that you gave us, and really, I hope we deserve. And to your point, of course, I mean, see, my experience has been much lesser than both of you. I've been 23 years at sea and 8 years as a master, and been through ups and downs from 1998 when I started off as a cadet all the way to late 2020s, I mean, late 2010s when I left and started this own venture. But yeah, I mean, we do see large gaps that exist in today's learning processes, which we wanted to address. But before all that started, as you rightly said, I've been a very, very passionate mariner. I've been a very passionate sailor. It was one of the, I mean, I could not imagine a profession more suited for somebody who has a little bit of adventurous blood in their streams, and and I still feel that there's a pride in the job. There's a lot of sense of pride in the profession that we are in, and which is why when we get together, we sort of drift back to those days, and we talk about our days of sailing. So yeah, I mean, I'll leave Captain Vaz to finish this discussion. Yeah.
Captain Vaz, what's your take on it, sir? What's your take on it?
Thanks, Captain Puneet, for that lovely introduction you have given. To answer your question, I mean, every mariner always dreams of coming ashore and settling ashore. And my break came when I was offered a position of a DPA and a marine superintendent. And it's only when you come to the office, you realize, it's not all that rosy what you think. All want to come ashore, but it's not all that easy. You're handling ships, you're doing extensive traveling. There are so many things. Most of the superintendents, I'll be honest with you, are actually carrying the jobs home. And when we talk about mental illness, I think this definitely not only relates to the people ashore, I mean, to the officers and crew on board, but also to the superintendents and all the people working ashore, because we work so hard, even though we are at home, coming home regularly, but our work's with us, one call away and you're talking to a ship. So you are actually with your work, and I don't see any difference between the seafarers ashore and the mariners who are working ashore. So yes, we have the luxury of the house, but again, your mind is back on the ship, handling ships with work. You're stretched out. So I think a lot of importance has to be given also to your own well-being ashore, and a lot of physical exercise, which is lacking in most of the people I know, because of the lifestyle, because of the extensive travel, and then of course the socializing. You need to socialize, you need to be in the circle. So there's hardly any exercise. You're trying to do that, and that's when I realized the importance of exercise, and I got into running. That's where it all started. Yeah.
Yes, coming to that, of course, we'll talk about it, Captain Robert, in due course. My main thing is like, if you remember one of the old poetry during my era of 4 odd decades ago, there used to be poetry. I just can rhyme few lines. That is the call of sea is a wild call in which all the sailors fall. Now, coming from there, when you guys decided to hang your boots and come into a joint venture, maybe a little bit later once got your things sorted out, what was your initial vision, and what were the challenges you faced when you were trying to enter into this training industry with your brainchild of NavGuide Solutions? What all challenges did you actually experience, be it your from the ethics point of view, or from the bureaucracy point of view, or the resistance what you had, because from a ocean point of view, a big fish always strives to go for a smaller one. So what's your all guys' experience?
Yeah, so that journey actually started very interestingly back in 2019, when we started identifying that there are certain gaps that exist in how seafarers learn their jobs on the ship. So we are not talking about what the curriculum ashore, which prepares them for a certification. That's not our area of work. Our area of work has been when the people step on board, how do they learn their jobs? Now, as we all know, the things have been running in a certain manner, and in a lot of ways, we wanted to challenge that status quo. I've been very, very fortunate to have people like Captain Vaz, Mr. Avinash, who's not here right now, who's our head of engineering. So we are essentially a bunch of rebels that we want to establish that there is some changes that are needed in the way things have been done, and I can elaborate on that eventually. But we started coming up with practical solutions on making people more efficient. Now, what happened almost immediately is that the kind of solutions we were bringing in were actually geared to make the ships perform better, make them safer, and overall have a very organic effect in improving the vessels. So we got identified very quickly as somebody that has an impact on vessel inspections. And because if your vessel is organically improving in terms of training, safety, documentation, pollution prevention, and many other ways, then you have a very, very real benefit in doing better in inspections and things like that. So we got identified in that sector. So we started working a lot with the HSEQ departments and the compliance departments of the vessels, where they were using our tools. Some forward-thinking companies, of all the people that we have spoken to, there has been a lot of appreciation for what we have done, but the implementation has happened. Initially, it was a big challenge to get this implemented because there was things being done in a certain way.
So coming,
yeah.
Yes, please. Sorry, to carry on. I will ask.
No, that was
later.
the gist of it. So that's how we started to challenge the status quo on how things were done, and to bring in these smarter solutions, which we can elaborate on that. But yeah, that's how we came together as a team. Yeah.
To complement the fact what Captain Devashish has just said, Captain Robert, how do you talk about your sustainability in the market when you came into the this particular field of training and mentoring with your ships inspection, SAR 2.0, or affiliated to OCIMF, etc. So what's your view on that, Captain Robert?
So I'll just step back a bit. So I'll divide this into two parts. So first, I've been involved in a lot of onboard training, more than 250 ships with different nationalities. And at that time, you realized that the training on board was very, very stagnated. You had videos which the entire crew used to watch for 30 minutes, and some used to doze, lights off in the mess room, all gone to sleep, and the video goes on, and that's how it went on. But when I went on board, I had a very different sort of training. It was a very interactive. We had role play, we had sharing of incidences, and all liked that training. And so I made it very, very interesting for them, right from master to the lower strung, all participated, and they eagerly, they always asked me, Captain Vaz, when is the next training session? So I used to go on board for 10 days, and it was very funny because most of the trainers said they don't like the ship staff, are not interested in training. And for me, it was the other way around. And that's when, I said, I need to do something. So I used to take small clips and discuss with the crew. And that's the way I used to work. Coming to the inspection part of it. So I've done, again, hundreds of pre-wetting inspections. And that's where I realized, though it's benefiting the ship, it's benefiting the managers, but I honestly don't think I was doing anything good, because I used to go on board, I used to prepare a ship, and most of the time the ship staff are not even interested because they know Captain Vaz is on the ship, he will fix everything. So I used to fix up everything. And most of the SIRE inspectors, right ship inspectors used to know me because I used to be around the Asia region and this area. So whenever they knew I was on the ship, oh, okay, Robert has done this, it must be good. So we came up with hardly any observations, one or two. Managers were extremely happy. But 1 month down the line, when they had another inspection, and they would have a list of observations. So then I realized, what am I doing? What are we trying to achieve? Of course, the managers are getting a very good report for that particular time, but there's nothing improving for the ship. That's when I decided, no, we need to improve the ship. We need to change the way they're thinking. That's when I met Devashish and we got together, because our styles of teaching are same, the vision is same. And that's when we got into this micro learning videos. And of course, it was a big challenge, but ours is a very niche type of work which was not there in the industry 4 years ago. The micro learning videos were not there. Of course, we discussed this with major ship owners. All were very excited about this. In fact, the crews, various officers have been, subscribing to us. So obviously they like something in us, and that has given us the incentive, and we are pushing on and not stop from then. We are just going step by step and going higher. That's how we started, and that's how we are in the industry at the moment.
Now, coming to the basic point, what it occurs to me as I've been talking to you gentlemen so far is that, when I was having a rendezvous with ex-DG shipping, Mr. Amitabh Kumar, I did propose to him that, sir, don't you think we need to do something on a STCW curriculum? Because when a mariner who is graduated, second mate, mate, master, whatever COC he or she has got, he or she does not have that actual view or interface of the practicality, right? So now, coming from that point of view, of course, I've been also imparting loads of trainings, but coming from that point of view, since you guys also have been from the same walk of life as what we speak now, what do you think? How is the attitude and the aptitude of a young mariners as far as their adaptability and their zeal to learn or to have a quest or being inquisitive? So what's your take onto it as far as our young mariners globally are concerned?
Yeah, this is actually a very interesting question, because so this is a very similar to the topic that next week I'll be in Singapore giving a speech on the pulse of the young generation and on the young mariners. So this is actually a topic which we have dived very deep on, that how the mariners and it's a very pertinent question that you asked, that how do we see that the zeal of the mariners now. very often, Captain Malhotra, this is very unfortunate, but very often we tend to put a very standard template on the next generation of seafarers, and we expect them to perform the way we have performed or the way generation before us has performed, and we find that they are not performing that way, and then we tag that as them being not serious or them not being attentive enough. They don't have interest. They don't want to do anything else. This is something that I've heard so many number of times. Now, there's a slight difference in the concept. Now, unless we understand the psychological changes that has happened over the last 20 years, and there has been huge changes. This is not just for the young generation. This has happened with us as well. With technology, with the world coming together as one big global village, they call it. When this happened, whatever happened with us over the last 20, 25 years has actually created a lot of changes. Unless we understand those changes, it's very, it's not a very prudent way to put that template on them. And what has been happening over the years, because of this not being able to understand the psychology of the young generation, we have actually wasted a lot of money. We have spent a lot of money on things that might not give us that much return. So I'll give you a very simple example. So let's say from the company standpoint, they want everybody on the ship to eventually grow and they want them to perform better. But what are they essentially doing for that? So most of the companies expect that seafarers would perform based on primarily three elements. One, the first element is a lot of text-based instructions that go from the shore to the ship. Now, text-based instructions include your checklists, your SMS guidance, your safety circulars, your PSC bulletins, essentially written material in a lot of different ways. Now, if you see the world around us, from the time a person is born, if anybody is born after the 2000s, they have literally grown up with audio-visual content everywhere. There is audio-visual content everywhere around you. You want to learn something, you can learn audio-visually from so many other ways. So that the attention span, the importance of text-based instructions is coming down. Now, if anybody is surprised why the new generation is not fond of text and not fond of reading circulars, and it's not a question of whether they're serious or not. That's
Captain
how they are
Devashish,
born.
I am sorry to interject you because you see, I'm talking about more on the factual thing and not the hypothesis, because I'm just making this statement without prejudice.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that of course it's not rosy. It's sea career or merchant navy is never or had never been bed of roses instead of bed of thorns. But if I talk about my era, this is I'm saying without prejudice. 4 odd plus decades ago, we were thrived. We were thrived for something. Like for instance, when I joined sea, for first 6 months I was not allowed to come onto the bridge wing. And after 3 months, I was probably, if I'm lucky, I'll be allowed to enter into the bridge.
Right.
And then obviously I'll become inquisitive because I've earned this from past 9 months. I want to know what is this, what is that. Yes? It's like spare the rod, spoil the child. But coming from that point in time and now, what I see the transition period, all the 4 decades transition I've seen, don't you think we are overfeeding them? Don't you think we should thrive them? Don't you think we should make them earn and learn? What's your take on it, Captain Robert?
I absolutely agree with what you're saying, but the problem at the moment is neither the seafarer have got time for that, neither does the ship have time for that. I'm sure I have grown up the same way like you did. I was not allowed to keep bridge watch for the first 6 months, just shipping, painting. Then I came onto the bridge, very inquisitive to find out. However, that is not the case now. Now they learn some stuff in the institutes, and when they come, they think they know. And of course, the mentoring is not the same. I mean, we don't have the same amount of time to dedicate to teach the young kids coming out to sea. They don't. Sometimes the seafarers want to learn, but they're very scared and apprehensive. If I ask him, what he will think, I don't know anything. I might jeopardize my appraisal. So, so there are a lot of these barriers that come across with the generation now. So you have to, one who know a lot of stuff theoretically, and they come and they have no experience, and some who are very skeptical to ask. And if you have a very good mentor on board and if he understands, he can see through it, he's matured enough, and he would actually groom this guy into what you want to be.
See,
Yeah.
yes, go ahead, Captain Devashish. Go ahead, please.
I just one small point I wanted to add, but it's very interesting what you pointed out, that the seafarers should actually be, they should yearn to learn, and that is in a lot of ways lacking. But I can tell you one thing, that there will always be in every generation, even in every classroom, in every group of students or everything, there'll always be the top 10% or the top 20% of students who will be the smartest. They will be grabbing information wherever they go, and it something would definitely work for them. Unfortunately, in our profession, we are not choosing candidates who are from the top 20% or top 10% cream of students in any category. We essentially expect that seafarers would come on board, they would learn their jobs and perform in a certain way. And this stands for every seafarer, from the knowledge levels, across knowledge levels, across interest levels. So when we work with such a varied demographic, it is very important to be very organic about understanding them, and not to impress upon them what we feel, what we have done all the time. We might have done certain things that it might have worked for us, but it might not work for them. And we are seeing this, and we are seeing this in action. Right now, we are working with a very, very large demographic of young seafarers who actually give us an organic feedback where we understand, okay, maybe we also thought wrongly that this certain thing will work, and it doesn't. So we have to then pivot accordingly. And this
I
flexibility
will
should
add
be
on
there.
this thing which may perhaps may clarify in a nutshell. If I talk about my own seniors, my seniors who had taught me out at sea, they actually opened the doors for us way back about 5 or 6 decades ago. And thereafter, that is how they honed us or trained us, right? And I think we and our generations, to a certain extent, held the fort for a while. But today, I think it is declining.
Absolutely.
Is it something you guys think that we are lacking from our side as a trainer, because we are overfeeding them? Or you think, is it important to instill some fear in them? Because if you, it's just a suggestion I'm
Yeah.
making, or I'm asking you, not making, I would say, I would correct myself, I'm asking. Would it be appropriate, would it be right to say that if you let the mariner strive for his own job, like for instance, when I do training, I'm on quite a few companies' platform. I first, right from the beginning, tell that gentleman or that lady that, listen, this is how the decorum is going to be. This is your curriculum, and this is how we are going to sit for next 4, 5, or 6 hours. However, end of the day would be assessment. If you're not paying attention, then I shall not be held accountable for it. But if your performance is below par, which will affect your employment. However, in case during the course of this interview or assessment, if at any point in time you want more clarity, I shall persevere to do that. And I'm not saying it has created magical things, but the output had been handsomely quite encouraging. But on the contrary to that, if I feed them, they are just passing time, yeah. They're just passing time. Yes, please, Captain Robert, please.
If I may add, Captain Puneet, you the way you have carried out your trainings, probably they fear their job, and they are probably they are forced to pay attention.
But
and
the objective is met.
That's
but
that's
the
not the case.
objective is met.
Yeah, absolutely agree. That's not the case when I did my training with various nationalities, all different nationalities. I never had this issue. First, you need
But
to,
but
if
one
you are
minute,
going to
Captain
train
Robert,
them,
Captain Robert,
yeah,
you
yeah,
had you and me or my previous guys uh, uh, had issues because we had come through the recession. Because I
yeah,
joined in '79, there was a recession was just setting in. By such
right,
time I graduated my first COC, I was already in recession. But when you joined the
right,
joined C, it was already you were in the recession. So you already
right.
were on that. You step, you know, into the C career in a turf.
Agree.
So your and my lessons were already learned. But today, when we are offering a present mariner with a red carpet treatment, he or she will take it. It's a human nature, yeah. I'm not saying in a derogation. So please don't get me
Right.
wrong. I'm
Yeah.
Yeah,
not making
absolutely.
in a derogation. But the idea is, until such time you make the mariners, the youngsters, without prejudice, without any derogatory thing, you make them learn or make them thrive to earn their job. I don't
Right.
think much can happen.
Okay, let me explain this with a very simple example. Without forcing them to learn. Now, as you know, SIRE 2.0, it focuses a lot on the human element. We tell our AB at the gangway, we have a SIRE inspector coming, make sure you receive him well and do your job properly. Now, what is properly to you may not be properly to him. What sort of a basic training he had in his maritime institute, I don't have a clue. We don't have the time to, train them, especially at that level. This is how you do a gangway check. Now, but when I'm training him, when I'm telling him this is the way we do it, and if you do it this way, you will able to explain, you will able to understand, change your attitude, everything right. And if you don't, this guy obviously is going to pick up this guy at the gangway had this problem, then you're going to jeopardize your job. So without you enforcing it, I'm just laying it in front of the table. And when he knows the options are good and he's going to pick up something without being embarrassed, he will definitely learn. So that's the way I go around it. I don't enforce it, but the way you put it, they are very happy to learn to make sure they're improving and getting better in the job. And of course, like you said, the objective is the same. We get the same objective.
Now, I agree with you, Captain Robert, to the extent that yes, fine. All five fingers are not same. We will have to differentiate. But the two things what I know of, you know, or I had honed it to it much more in depth, is the communication, that how we communicate with them,
Yep.
how we, not only encourage with them, we give them all the basic facilities, but at after that, as far as the performance is concerned, their attitude has to be proactive. And of course, as far as the gray matter is concerned or the aptitude is concerned, I know it may vary. So then they will have to have that sort of adaptability. I'm not biased on this subject matter, but the idea is the objective to meet the objective. Now, how to get the objective being met, that depends upon the trainers. And that's where we guys, or you and me, or the Captain Derbashish week, or our comrades come into the picture. And that's what
Yeah.
actually I had very loud and clear. I'll put this question to Mr. Amitabh Kumar. I said, sir, what have we done? What have
Right.
we done to basically amend or improvise into the STCW or our examination curriculum or our syllabi to hone the mariner's skill? Fine, theory, what we do, we will go through it. We have been through it. But the practicality, we do it on board. But when there is no link or no coordination between theory and practical, you
Yeah.
don't blame that third mate or a second mate or a third mate who has stepped on board for the first time as a certified officer or a cadet for that matter.
Absolutely
Totally
agree
agree.
with you, Captain Puneet. Absolutely agree. And that's where we come in as NavGuide Solutions, because we are actually bridging the gap between the theory and the practicals, which is missing. So all our micro videos are basically how the job is done on the ship. What is, you're trained something in a classroom, but you don't know any of this. But all our videos are actually shot on ships, actually done. I'll give a very simple example. When you have told the third mate, go and check your life buoys, are they in good condition? But that's what he sees. Okay, it's painted well. Okay, it's got a retroreflexive tape, the name. But how does he check the grab line? Nobody has explained to him that. You know, if he was with a very senior chief officer who's actually showed him how to test it, then he might go and check it, or else he just visually look at it and it's over. But did somebody actually take him and held the grab line in your hand, twist it, check whether it's okay? So that's sort of the gap what we are bridging in all our videos, you know, theoretical
Well,
as well as practical combined. Yeah, Deb, go ahead.
I just like to boil down a couple of things here. I mean, obviously there are different ways to approach the same problem. We know that our intention at the end of the day is to educate the mariner and make them better in professionals, right? With whichever way we come at it. Now, we have done some structured and systematic study on this, and I'm talking about very, very non-objective, no prejudices, no previous, just having what do the studies say, and then we have applied those things into our systems, and we have found fantastic results. So basically, if you talk about motivation at its core for any person in the world, there are four different kind of motivators, which is also the teachings of our Bhagavad Gita, Sham, Dam, Dand, Ved. So either motivate somebody with equality, you stand beside him and you say that I am working with you, let us do this together. That's one way to motivate. The other way to motivate is with fear, as you said, which is practically used across the board. Fear of losing something. If you don't do this, you will not get your next assignment. If you don't fill up this, we will catch you, and then you will land up in trouble. So fear in a lot of different ways is already there. Then there is reward. Reward is a big motivator. Yes, if I do this, I will get something additional. And the fourth kind of motivator, which is to leave people alone to do their jobs, making them feel comfortable in their own ways, which is bhed in the Bhagavad Gita. So basically, these are the four motivators. There is very little that can happen outside of this. We have tried different combinations. Now, I can tell you one thing, Captain Puneet, which you also mentioned. It cannot be a one size fits all system. Not everything will, not the same system will never work for everybody. But how do you know which person it will work for, or which person it will not work for? That's why we tend to revert back to one standard system. Okay, this is what we will follow. If it doesn't work for some people, let that be the exception, and we will follow the majority, which is a fair thing to say. What we do is very interestingly, because we are in the business of actually, I mean, we don't have a forum where we need to prove the strategies as much as we have to prove the results. There's one way to that this strategy will work. We can prove that, but the results is what talks in our case. So when we work with a shipping company, or we work with a ship management company or a ship operator, we are essentially bringing the value proposition of improving their vessels organically. Now, how we do it, we have number of digital tools, like what Captain Bas said. About 4 years back, we started talking about micro learning, about gamification, about apps that are smarter ways to do things. So we have all those things being used in companies now. But my point is, there is a combination of fear and reward in it. On one side, the people know that if they don't do this, they have something to lose. Okay, what they have to lose? Maybe it's the company's requirement for them to do this, or if not a requirement, at least their own personal growth. They will be hampered. They will not get the next promotion. They will not, they will not get a good appraisal. That's also some kind of a fear. But when they come into the system, they should be rewarded for the experience, and not they should not have to do that. And what I'm talking about is organic study that has happened of this generation, especially of this present generation of seafarers. And I'm really talking between the age of 20 to 40 right now. The young millennials to the Gen Zs. The young millennials, they are at the age group of 35 to 40. The Gen Zs are coming up from 20 to 30, that age group. So this is a very important age group to understand. especially in our profession, these are the frontline workers. These are your chief officers, your third officers, your fourth engineers. They are all over the place working on the ship. Now, at a decision-making authority, when we are the decision-making authority of what training should we give them from whether the company side or whether the institute side. Yeah. So we
I
can take
understand,
decisions,
Captain
but we have to
Devashish, that
understand. Yeah.
the thing is, I agree to a certain extent, but then I think, correct me if
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
wrong. That is, first is that the discipline, the attitude, proactive. Now, when I say all that, okay, it has a impression of my personality because I've been all the way with my forefathers' background from the forces. So the first thing had been the discipline. And I found it, in my own humble opinion, that many a times, you really have to, or one really has to take bull by horns when you are trying to streamline the thing. Okay. Because ultimately, when we talk about, let's say, from the Indian maritime, fraternity, as I'm saying, there was a time when an Indian mariner was rated very highly. I think Captain Robert may agree with me. But somewhere down the line, it has declined, even after giving them all types of resources. You'll be surprised when I've been doing the NAV mentoring sessions, besides doing the journalist job many a times other places. When I ask a single question to even a senior officer, why rule number 5, what is your primary means of lookout? You will be surprised the ridiculous answer I get, Captain Ectus. And that should sum up the whole thing because you see, the more you feed, you must see that what is the outcome and output. But nevertheless, coming to your nav guide solutions, why did we have this brainstorming session? Is to get the conceptual point clear that what resources have you been using, and don't you think are you using more resources than the candidate deserves as far as his aptitude is concerned, or don't you think that he or she shall be thrived upon to reach you instead of you chasing them or reaching them? Having, yes. So coming from that point in time, with your brainchild nav guide solutions, what would be your next plan of action, and what is your vision in coming few months or years, or how do you plan to streamline all these things with the things what we have discussed so far?
So the basic essence of what we try to do, and this has been the common essence between the driving force behind our company, because of which we are getting recognized wherever we are getting recognized. The essence has been this, that the thought process of the younger generation is different. And if we understand that and we devise the tools, not necessarily to impress them, this has to be understood, not necessarily to impress them, but to get the job done. So where you rightly said that where we need a push, we need to give a push, but that has to be understood what the type that should be based on the present generation, not putting the ancient template to them and thinking that would work. What I'm saying is, what our endeavor for the last
not
4 years
ancient
has been.
template,
No,
Captain
I'm not.
Devashish. It's like
Let me just clarify
amalgamation.
this.
It's like
Correct.
amalgamation from both the sides and coming out with something new. And that's what was my last question, what I asked you, that based upon that, what's your vision when you talk about to amalgamate or have the homogeneous kind of a thing from both the eras? What do you see? Do you think it would work in a positive manner, or do you think it will have no effect? Taking the way our current generation or the younger generation, they have that sort of perception.
Yes, that is the point I was actually going to come to, Captain Malhotra, that people like yourself, people like Captain Vaz has been so efficient in training a entire generation of.
We were trained to be whatever best we could achieve.
Yes, but of course. I mean, because of
I'm
that,
not going to go into that again. Nevertheless, so what's your vision? What's your next vision?
So there are a couple of things we are combining in our endeavor. We are combining the experience and expertise of people like yourselves, people like Captain Vaz, Mr. Avinash, who I spoke about, our head of engineering. He has been the head of NYK training and Epic Gas for more than 10 years. So experience at its very core is the magic potion in everything. So we cannot afford to go wrong on that. I mean, that experience and that accurate information is a strength. We are combining that with the latest technology. When we talk about technology, we are talking about micro learning. We're talking about gamification for several years now, and people are using it across the board right now. And we are combining this experience with these technologies, but also when we are combining it, we are trying to make it creative and adding a creative mix to it, so that when a person comes on to do these courses, I mean, I think you'll agree to this,
When
that there
I
has been a
was
number of
interviewing
approaches where,
Captain Chawla, the big boss of ex-Anglo Eastern, you must have seen my interview. If not, have a look at it. Captain Pradeep Chawla, he also had the similar kind of, he had the similar vision. I did a lot of things. I did ask him that, okay, if you're playing video games, that's okay. The child, your pupil or your student will learn from there only. But when you see the factuality, there'll be a difference. Coming from there, Captain Devashish, let's share any of your experience you may have during your sailing time. Would you like to share with us, our viewers, something,
yeah, yeah, sure.
something where you had anything exceptionally you had to come out of the, through all the thicks and thins, or the perils of sea, what you had experienced with your on-hand experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I completely agree with you that the on-hand experience has to be imparted, and that is also where we work a lot with the seafarers, with the on-hand side of it. And I will, from my time at sea, there are several experiences like that. But I can tell you one example which happened with us just a few months back, which actually opened our eyes to a large extent. Now, this was a ship in Rotterdam where we were working on with this ship, and we knew that the Rotterdam port state control from the Paris MOU would come up on board, and we asked everybody on board to make sure everything is all right. Now, the third officer on this ship pointed out something, which is that there was a crack on the rescue boat where you tighten up the straps. At that point, it's a crack. Now, even the master, the chief officer, missed it out, but the third officer could point it out, because when we did the hands-on training with them, we showed them, okay, this is the area, this is the region you must take care of, and you must identify. Now that saved the ship from a detention, and probably a lot of other implications that could have happened. And this is not just about a detention. It is actually what we have seen is the kind of approaches which we have imparted, have tried to save, improve overall safety and awareness on board. This awareness I'm talking about even in junior levels like the bosuns and the OSS and the oilers, not just for the senior officers. I personally, as a master, have always felt that there exists a huge gap where we are expected to, as senior officers, we are expected to train the ship staff. And I'm talking about, I've sailed for some of the best companies in the world, companies that have actually put a lot of attention on seafarers and training. Even on those companies, I'm saying there is a gap where it exists that as senior officers, we do put in a lot of effort to train the juniors to a certain level, but that training goes away the moment they sign off and another new set of people come, and then again the same process starts. This is definitely something we can address, and this is what we have been doing to address with the mentorship on board, the onboard mentorship. If I try to recall, almost every knowledge or every skill that I would recall is from a senior that has taught me, and those seniors are brilliant, the people who wants to teach where there is a right environment to teach. But there are a lot of ships where there are cultural differences, language barriers, interpersonal problems. I don't want to talk to this person, this kind of stuff, which mentorship is lacking. So this is my experience from my sea life,
I
as well as the
understand,
work
Captain
that I've done.
Demetrius. I understand. Captain Robert, would you like to have something to share for our viewers from your sailing career, any of the thicks or thins or the perils you had been through, and anything you had come out on the factual basis, any of the emergency contingencies?
I'm sure as mariners, all of us have gone through rough weathers. It could be a lot of near misses, emergencies, fires. I would just like to recall a very brief incident of a fire. I was on board a gas carrier. That was a very old, 30-year-old gas carrier, and we had just three telephones, if I recall. One was on the bridge, one was in the engine room, one was in the steering gear. There's no other telephones. So even if you had to wake up somebody, you had to actually go and knock his door and wake him up. And at about 4 o'clock, 4:10 in the morning, I saw the engineer coming up to the bridge. Chief, there's a fire. I said, what, where? The engine room. I said, oh, ring the alarm then. So anyway, I rang the alarm, rang the emergency alarm, and like we expect, all come to the muster station. That didn't happen. We had different nationalities on board. As chief and being in charge there, I actually ran with the second engineer down. As soon as you opened the engine room door, you could see smoke, you could see flames. So trying to when I went back to the muster station, there's no one there. Fire had to go off. I mean, so you've seen huge flame in front of you. So we had a couple of officers and myself, we donned the BA set, went in, put off the fire. And when we came out, I mean, we realized what we did. Where was the training? We of course put off the fire, all came and touched, gave us a hug, and we were saved the ship, etc. But that was absolutely wrong, because all the training we did, nobody came to the muster station. There were many who actually started saying the prayers in the forecastle. Some actually tried to launch the lifeboat, and they pulled the hook, so the lifeboat was hanging. So, I mean, that's when you realize, all the training we do, if you're not up in critical situations, theoretical training is of no use. So whilst on the ship, when I used to be on board, when I used to be a trainer on board, I should tell them all this textbook knowledge is fine, all the drills are fine, but you have to have very, very realistic scenarios when you're doing the drill. Be it an enclosed space drill, you're every time lifting up a mannequin, it's very simple. You try putting a weight there and check. In one case, we actually put a very heavy weight and the rope parted. Now, what if there was a real casualty there? So we try to make the drills very, very interesting, and that's when real learning happens.
Right. Now, coming to the most interesting point of this interview and agenda, addressed to Captain Robert Shane Mars, in your most appreciated salt starts and gymnastics venture of turning into a marathoner from a mariner. Please brief our viewers what actually motivated you. And if you would like to talk about more upon that, Captain Robert will be certainly, a life-saving, life-sharing experience from you and from us to listen.
All right. So, like you mentioned, my running journey started in 2010. That was the inception of the Goa River Marathon, and that was the first time a marathon being held in Goa. And the newspapers had a lot of buzz. You had international runners, the Kenyans, the Ethiopians, all going to run the streets of Goa. So I said, let me take my kids. My daughter was 9 years old and my son was 7. So I said, let us do a 5-kilometer run. And my wife said, you're gone crazy. These small kids, you're going to make them run for 5 kilometers. I said, no, we'll just walk, but we'll see what happens. So anyway, we went for this, and it was a very carnival atmosphere. You had dancers, you had musicians, the whole streets, people standing, clapping, and you could see these guys, burning the streets literally. And watching all of them, we walked through, and we actually finished 5 kilometers. And I was really surprised that my kids 9 and 7 did it. Then I said to myself, why don't I start running? So the next year, I actually registered in 2011 for a half marathon. And of course, I didn't have any formal training. I didn't have a coach, but that passion was always there to run. So that's when I started. Of course, in school, I was not a sportsman, never received a medal in sports. But when I finished this marathon, the very fact somebody putting a medal on you, and, I had goosebumps. Oh my God, I ran 21 kilometers, which is, you couldn't imagine few weeks and few months ago, because being on ships, going up and down, we don't have time for all this. And that's when I said, okay, let me start running continuously. So I was inspecting ships that time. I didn't have the time, but I made the time. So if I would join a ship, I know the ship is delayed or I have to wait in a hotel for one day. I have to actually change up, go and do my run, whichever country on the planet I've run in various places, just training runs, come back. And every time took part in small 10-kilometer runs, 21-kilometer runs. And of course, the excitement kept on building because once you complete the run, you get a medal. And so I started doing that. And then, of course, the running bug bit me, like they say. And I started, like, why not I graduate to a full marathon? That's a 42-kilometer run. So that's when I started doing the 42-kilometer run, and seeing me running, my wife and my kid also said, why don't we start running? So they actually started running. So my son at the age of 11 was the youngest marathoner in Goa to do a half marathon.
Okay.
He did it
Great.
He did it in 2 hours, 11 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. And then my wife started running half marathons. I started doing the full, and I felt very, very nice. Once you complete a marathon, there's something called as a runner's high. The dopamine kicks in, you're on a high, you feel you can conquer, you can do anything. So that was my high. And of course, many young people started getting motivated. I started running at the age of 40. And they said, this old man is running at 40 and we can definitely do better. So many youngsters started actually taking to running, which I feel very proud of. Then I said, let me go one step higher. And I decided to do an ultra. So an ultra marathon is anything more than 42 kilometers. So we have a marathon called as the Malhotra'S Ultra, which is going to happen in November first week. So I actually registered for a 50-kilometer run. And that's when I seen the best of the best from all over India and abroad. And, one night before you have the pre-dinner and all keep speaking, okay, I have done a 36 hours run. I've done a 48 hours run. I've done a 200-kilometer run. What have you done? And very, very, with my head down, I say, I've just done a 42-kilometer, nothing more than that. And they say, oh my God, how will you survive this? I say, I'm just trying it. If I finish, I finish. If I don't finish, I don't finish. And to my surprise, at the end of the run, out of, I think, 80, very few survived that 50, and I was one of them. And all these guys who spoke so much.
Did you receive some professional training, Captain Robert, prior to that?
No. I didn't receive any professional training. My professional training was talking to different runners, going on YouTube, listening to other professional runners. That's where I still till today never hired a coach. First, because I don't have the time to go through that structured training. So I prefer to do it this way.
So it's like train and self-train, Captain Robert.
That's
certainly
right. That's right.
Commendable. It certainly is commendable. Definitely. Now, I also believe that you had also done the run at the highest motorable point in the world, that is Khardungla Pass. I think it is 18,500 feet above the sea level, if I'm not mistaken. The challenges you must have... 300. Okay, thanks for correcting me. Now, the challenges you must have had, because I had driven down so I could know a little bit, but definitely you being a marathoner would have had the toughest of the toughest terrains. But
yes.
What actually motivated you? One is altitude, second is lack of oxygen, and third, you're doing the marathon over there. Can you please, tell our viewers about that, which certainly will motivate, I think, many of our youngsters.
Right. So once I did the 50-kilometer run, then I actually went and did a 100-kilometer run in Bangalore. And I felt very nice. Of course, you reach that 100 magical figure. And then I said, why not? When lots of people talking about Khardungla, the world's toughest run, where there's 50% oxygen, you cannot breathe, the temperatures are very low, negative temperature, strong wind chill factors, lots of stuff involved, and many people don't make it. And first of all, the criteria to qualify for this run is you have to run 2 full marathons in less than 5 hours. So I actually started training for that first and gradually got my timing up, so I have qualified for this. And
so
then
that means you have to run 2 full marathon. That means 42-kilometer marathon.
Yes.
In 5 hours.
In less than 5. One marathon in less than 5 hours. So
okay.
At the moment, I did one marathon in 4 hours 35 minutes. A 42-kilometer in 4 hours 35 minutes. So of course I qualified for it.
Okay.
So once I qualified for it, I said, let me go and try it. So the run starts at a place called Khardung village. and this is at 13,000 feet, and this starts at 3 o'clock in the morning. Now,
Okay.
in this village, there is no lights. The lights go off at 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. So you have to prepare everything with a torchlight. You're staying in houses of the locals. Of course, there are no fancy toilets. There's just a hole with some ash. So you have to, and the water is all frozen. So you have to do all this at 2 o'clock in the morning. You can imagine. You're standing at the start line at 3 o'clock. It's very cold. Almost 2-3 degrees. I did it twice.
Which month were you there, Captain Robert?
This is in September. In the
September
first week of September. Yes.
I remember I drove down in the month of June where it's open for the tourists. So I can understand how toughest terrain it must have been in the month of September.
Very cold. So
I think roads are also closed by then.
Yes. I had about 3-4 layers of clothes on me, my headlamp, and then you start. So you snake your way up to a place called North Pulu, which is at 15,000 feet, and finally you come to Khardungla top, K-top, which is at 18,000, almost 400 feet actually. And from there you wind down back into the village. And challenges you face is you cannot breathe. You know, forget running; it's difficult to walk there. So every step you have to stop, breathe, and you have to be careful how you breathe as well, because if you breathe from your mouth, cold wind going into your lungs, and you'll have a big problem. And that's where majority of the people do not finish their run. So, you know, I had my first target of just breaking at small targets. So I reached my first marathon I did in 2019 when I reached K-top, Khardungla top, and most of the people don't even reach there. So once I reach there, you know, and you start enveloped by this mountain. You don't know, you're like hypnotized. You
kind
don't know what's happening.
Hallucination.
You definitely hallucinate. So once I crossed K-top, I thought, how will I go to the finish line? You know, should I hold the flag or should I kiss the ground or what? I'm thinking of all that. And, you know, I finished 55 kilometers. And that's when I realized, oh my God, I've crossed the timing. I'm not going to make it now. Because they are very, very stringent cutoffs. So I actually did all the cutoffs, but the last cutoff I could not make. So I did not finish my run and I felt very, very bad. I cried for months and months. I mean, on the ships, you have seen deaths, you have seen catastrophes, collisions, but never a tear came down. But for this, I cried. I mean, I prepared very hard. Then COVID came. I went back last year and I did this race and I completed it. And so, of course,
great applause, big applause.
It feels very, very, very nice to have completed the race. So you learn a lot. You influence people. I mean, there's a lot to learn from it. I would not say I'm self-learned, I know everything, but every time I go, I learn something. I've made a lot of mistakes. I correct them. I share my information with whoever I know. And I definitely, you know, influence, especially all my mariners in Goa, the CMMI club. Take to running, guys. You need to start running. You need to start exercising. Cardiac arrests are so, I mean, every second person is dying of cardiac arrests. Lifestyles are becoming very poor. Stress is becoming so much. So you don't need to just work. Of course, work is important. Money is important. But if you don't have the health, how are you going to enjoy it? So you could do yoga, you could do running, you could do whatever you want. Do Zumba, but do something. Don't just sit and give lectures to the seafarers about mental health when your health is deteriorating. You know, so that's where it comes from, and that's where I keep pushing. I give talks in colleges or go down even to different companies during seminars. I stress on the fact that we as seafarers ashore and on the ship need to be physically fit and mentally fit.
Great, Captain was. Certainly it had been a learning curve for all of us and our viewers, especially when we, you know, heard about you regarding, you know, trying to conquer the 18,400 feet Khardungla Pass. And even after you were like, you know, so disheartened with the kind of hallucination you had after you reached Khardung point, and still you did not, you know, leave any stone unturned to make sure that you make it happen. That is a big salute to you, Captain
Thank you.
Robert.
Thank you very much.
And ladies and gentlemen, we have had two of our eminent guests on this platform. And I think we have talked about lots of things. One thing which occurs to me before we, you know, call it off or close finish with the session, Captain Robert, with so much of your perseverance under the tenacious circumstances, talking about your marathon, I think you must have had lots of takeaway points, which perhaps if you would like to practice them in your professional training and all that, I think that certainly would be a very big motivation for all your, students, followers, etc. That's what I think.
Yes. I definitely use these examples. I tell them, you need to keep at it. You need to be resilient. It's not going to be easy.
Resilient.
No one,
Yes.
nobody is
Resilience
going
is
to
the name of
accept
the
you.
game, Captain Robert. Yes.
Yes. It's continual improvement. You're going to come down at some time. You can't be running your full power all the time. So you will go slow. You need
Life,
to pick up yourself, nourish well, hydrate well, and keep pushing on. It's not going to be easy, but if you don't give up, you can never fail. That's my mantra.
life itself is a sinusoidal curve, crest and troughs. It all depends. How do we persevere under those tenacious circumstances and come out with the flying colors? And that's what actually reflects or talks about the man's character. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. I really, applaud
Thank you.
for all your ventures and perseverances, and I wish you all the very best. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Captain
Jai
Puneet,
Hind,
for
Jai
having
Bharat.
us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day.
Thank you very, very much, Captain Puneet, for having us on your platform. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Captain Puneet.
Likewise, sir. Likewise. Thank you.
Likewise.
Good day. Bye-bye.